Hey kiddos, we're going to go ahead and talk about truth tables, and this is something that you'll definitely see if you take a college course logic class. So, yeah, let's get going. All right, so something that you need to know about truth tables, so a few vocabulary words. Compound statements is a sentence that consists of two or more statements separated by a logical connector or biological connectors, okay? You guys already are familiar with negation, okay, which is the opposite of a statement. And you guys hopefully recall negation is this symbol here. Conjunction, okay, so this is new. Conjunction is a compound statement created by using and as a logical connector, okay? So compound statement, this is our symbol that we will use in logic, and conjunction basically means and. All right, well, we got also disjunction, okay, which is a compound statement created by using or as a logical connector, okay? So disjunction looks like the opposite of conjunction, all right? So it's the actual V, okay? And that's going to be represented by the word or. So disjunction, or, conjunction, and. All right, so let's look at a truth table for conjunction. Okay, so here's the symbol of conjunction, upside down V. Okay, and remember conjunction means and. So what we're saying here is that we have two statements. Okay, P and Q. Those are two statements. So P and Q. And I'm telling you that P is going to be, so there's four instances that we usually have per statement. Okay, so we have true, true, false, false. Q, notice kind of mix it up a little bit. True, false, true, false. But notice each one has got two trues and two false. All right. So now we're comparing it going horizontally here. Okay. So basically, P is true and Q is true. So therefore, the whole thing is true. Next one. So remember, we're doing conjunction. So we're looking at and here. Okay. P is true. Whoops, what is that? All right, so P is true and Q is false. Well, if you have a true and a false, then this whole statement has to be false. Next one, false and true. P is false and Q is true, then that whole statement has to be false. Next one here, false and false. If P is false and Q is false, then, well, they're false. So the observation here that you should make is you must have two truths in order for a conjunction to be true. So a conjunction can only be true if both statements are true. Because I'm saying and true makes it true. If I have either combination, both false or false and trues, then that makes the statement automatically false because there's a false statement involved. All right, so now let's look at disjunction. All right, so looking at our disjunction truth table, just reminding you about the symbol. It is a V shape, okay, disjunction, and disjunction does mean or. All right, so P or Q. So again, same kind of setup for our P values and our Q values. All right, so these are the biggest number of different options we can have. Okay, so that's why there's four of them. Okay, so P is true or Q is true, then this statement has to be true. All right, if one of them's true, it's got to be true. So let's look at the next combination, true or false. One of them's true, one of them's false, but the key word is that you have or, then it's still true. Hope you guys are catching on to the pattern already. If I have a false or true, then the statement is true. But what about if we have false or false? False or false, that would end up being false. So the observations that you should make here are that disjunctions are always true except for when you have two false. So anytime you get two false statements with a disjunction, then it is going to be false. So what's important to know is for a disjunction, as long as one of your statements is true, then the whole statement's going to be true. All right? That's the biggest thing about disjunction. All right, so let's do this example. Make sure that you guys understand the difference between conjunction and disjunction, and or. So notice I do have the symbols written out here for us, okay? So first example, P. January 1st is the first day of the year. Is that statement, we're going to give it a truth value, okay? Is that statement true or false? Hopefully you guys agree that that is a true statement. All right, now what about Q? -5 plus +11 equals -6. Is that statement true or false? Well, I know my math people. I know y'all know how to add. That is false. Okay, so Q is a false statement. Now let's look at R. A triangle has 3 sides. Hopefully you guys are in agreement with me that that is a true statement. Okay, so first what we had to figure out was the truth value of P, Q, and R. So we got it. P is true, Q is false, R is true. Now, let's work on finding the values if we have a conjunction or a disjunction. Okay, so notice what I did here by the problem is I made sure to actually write out what it is first. So that way I kind of get my mind in the right set. So I noticed the symbol here, upside down V, is a conjunction, so I put and. So I just put the and symbol next to it. So let's replace the P and the Q with the actual truth value. P, we stated was true, and Q is false. So if you have a true and a false, then this statement is false. All right, let's look at the next one, number 2. And notice number 2 is or. Okay, so it is a disjunction. We're comparing Q or R. So Q is false, or R is true. So if I have a false or a true, then the whole statement is true. All right, and remember, you guys can always look back at your actual truth tables that we created for conjunctions and disjunctions, and you can look at it and compare. So in the disjunction table, okay, if you look at where we have a false or a true, you should see that we stated that the whole statement was true. All right, so number 3. Looking at, this is a conjunction, so we have, notice my and symbol here. So P and R, trying to determine the truth value of that statement, P and R. So P, we know, is true, and R, we also knew was true. So if you have a true and a true statement, then therefore the whole thing is true. All right, number 4. Now be careful here, threw a little curveball at you. That squiggly out in front means negation, okay? So remember, negation means basically the opposite. So if P originally is true and I have not P, and therefore I'm actually turning not P into a false, okay? It's false. And this is also a conjunction problem. So and Q is false. So if you have a false and a false, then it is false. And remember, guys, always look back at your truth tables that we just created to check. All right, number 5. I noticed that there's a negation involved, and I also noticed this is a disjunction, okay? So keep that in mind. R originally is true, so not R is going to turn it into a false. This is or, so false or. Q is false. So false or false. So we get false. All right, now number 6 looks a little confusing, but you got to think order of operations, okay, still applies here. So technically we got to do what's in parentheses first, okay? So we got P and Q. Now, P is a true statement, and Q was a false statement. So if I have a true statement and a false statement, then that compound statement is false. And then I got the squiggly on the outside, which means I'm negating that. So if I negate a false statement, that means I just made it a true statement. I'm going to kind of bring this down, all right? So this symbol here represents or. So we have true or R, and R was a true statement. So if you have a true statement or another true statement, then therefore the compound statement is true. All right, now I want you guys to take out a separate sheet of paper, and you are going to draw this truth table out, okay? And this time I've given you 3 statements, P, Q, and R, okay? And I want you to fill in the blanks comparing these 2 values, all right? So for example, make sure you write what we're talking about. So for this first one, we got P and R. I'll put an and symbol there, okay? The second column here, we got Q or R. And then the last one, you have the negation of P, so not P and Q, all right? So kind of just to walk you guys through the first one, we got P and R. P is true and R is true, so therefore that's true, okay? Going down to the next one, so I'm going down this way first. So I'm going to do it this way first, okay? P is true and R is false. So if I have a true and a false, then that is false, okay? You're going to continue to fill this in. And then the next column, you got Q or R, all right? And fill in this whole column. And then the last one, you have not P and Q, and fill in this column. We will most definitely go over this in class to see if you guys got it right. Adios.